Welcome back to today's Daily English Look. Every chief executive, every founder, they all have that one dream,
Oh, yeah.
that one product, the one that just explodes and rockets a company to global fame seemingly overnight.
Yeah.
You get that buzz, the name recognition, the stock price just goes vertical.
Right. From the outside, it really looks like you've won the game.
Exactly. And you, our listener, you shared some really fascinating source material with us about 3 companies that basically hit that jackpot in 2025.
We're talking about OpenAI, of course, with its AI breakthroughs, Novo Nordisk with those wildly popular weight loss drugs, and then PopMart with their collectible art toys.
Okay, so let's get into this because the sources we dug into, they revealed something really surprising, almost, counterintuitive. This kind of runaway success. It's not the finish line. It's more like the start of a whole new, really punishing race. For these companies, it actually brought this severe, almost self-destructive risk.
The sources even have a name for it. They call it the curse of overnight success.
The curse. I like that.
And that framing is perfect because it really gets at how fragile that initial victory is. The demand is just so huge, so immediate, that it tests every single part of the company. So our mission for this deep dive is to break down the 3 big pitfalls of that curse and then, contrast that with some companies the sources call the quiet achievers.
All right, let's jump right in. Pitfall number 1. The sources call it the vexed task of impossible scaling.
And that's really the core of it. You suddenly have to scale your business to meet a level of demand that, well, it was basically impossible to predict. How do you budget for that? How do you build for that?
You can't.
You can't. And the OpenAI example here is just, it's extreme.
It really is unprecedented. I mean, ChatGPT's launch created this kind of market momentum that the analysis says we haven't seen in, what, a generation?
A generation, yeah. And look at the numbers. According to the company's own data, something like 1/10 of the entire world's population now uses the chatbot.
1/10 of the planet.
And it's still climbing. So the firm isn't projecting, gentle growth. They're projecting yearly revenue of around $200 billion by 2030.
$200 billion. That's 10 times what they're making now.
10 times. And that kind of projection, it changes the scaling problem from a business challenge into, well, something existential.
Because to even have a shot at that number, they have to commit to this colossal, almost unthinkable investment just to keep the lights on.
Exactly. The sources detail that OpenAI has committed to spending, get this, $1.4 trillion on computing power.
Whoa, hold on. I have to stop you there. 1.4 trillion. With a T.
With a T. Mostly on chips and data centers over the next few years.
That's more than the GDP of a lot of countries. Is that figure? Is it real? Or is it maybe just a scare tactic to ward off competitors?
That's a fair question, but the analysis suggests it's a reality check. It's just the physics and the economics of it. Scaling AI isn't like printing more software. It takes real, specialized, very expensive hardware.
And a ton of power.
A ton of power. And to fund it, the sources say OpenAI is getting into these circular deals.
Okay, what's a circular deal?
It means they're effectively recycling the money. They take a huge investment from, say, a big chip manufacturer, and then they immediately sign a massive contract to buy chips back from that same company.
So the money just flows in a circle.
It does. It keeps the capital moving, but it also locks them into these huge dependencies. It just shows how desperate the need for cash is right now.
This part of the analysis was, it was genuinely scary. The sources flat out say that if OpenAI falls short of that growth projection, if they miss that 10-fold increase,
They'll probably go broke.
and maybe take the whole AI boom down with them.
It's not just a scaling challenge anymore. It's a race against time, and if they lose, the whole thing could collapse under the weight of that debt. That's the curse.
And that problem, just not being able to meet the demand, it's dangerous for another reason. Because if you can't deliver, someone else will. Which brings us to pitfall number 2.
Right. Underinvestment that opens the door for what the sources call shadow markets.
The Novo Nordisk case is the perfect example here, isn't it?
It's the classic case. They're the Danish company that pioneered the big weight loss jabs like Wegovy, and the product was an instant world-changing hit.
But they were just caught completely off guard by the demand.
Completely. They were way too slow ramping up their manufacturing, and it created this huge supply vacuum for the drug.
And when you leave a supply vacuum in a market like the U.S., someone is going to fill it.
And they did. These compounding pharmacies stuffed right in.
Okay, for our listener, maybe we should quickly clarify what a compounding pharmacy is.
Sure. So a normal pharmacy just gives you a drug that's already made and approved. A compounding pharmacy can actually mix ingredients to create a custom medication for a specific patient.
For things like allergies or unique doses.
Exactly. It's usually for niche needs. But here, they used a pretty big loophole.
Which,
When a drug is officially listed as being in shortage by the FDA, which Wegovy was, compounding pharmacies are legally allowed to basically make their own versions of it.
so they just started pumping out cheaper, maybe less tested replicas of the drug?
And stole a huge chunk of the market right out from under Novo Nordisk, all because the original company just couldn't make enough of their own product.
And this wasn't just a temporary fix, right?
Right.
The shadow market actually stuck around.
It became entrenched. That's the thing. The official shortage ended back in February, but the sources say that even today, around 1 million Americans are still taking these copycats.
So Novo Nordisk's failure to scale created a permanent competitor.
A competitor that didn't have to spend a dime on the original research and development.
And just to show you, this isn't only a problem for, complex pharma. Let's talk about PopMart.
Right. The Chinese company behind those little grinning Labubu dolls with the 9 teeth.
It's the same pitfall, just with toys. They can't make them fast enough, and now they're fighting a, quote, scourge of fake 8 or 10-tooth lafufus.
Ufufus. It sounds funny, but you can see the problem. Whether it's a life-saving drug or a collectible toy, if you can't meet demands, someone else will.
Counterfeiters, compounding pharmacies.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't. That time lag between your product becoming a hit and you reaching full scale, that is the exact moment the curse strikes.
And that fragility leads us straight to the third and maybe the most unfair pitfall, the first mover disadvantage. Because while you're scrambling to scale and fighting off shadow markets, your big legitimate competitors are just sitting back, watching and learning from every single mistake you make.
And this played out perfectly with Novo Nordisk and their rival Eli Lilly. So Eli Lilly brought out their own weight loss drug, Zepbound, a couple of years after Novo Nordisk created the market.
And this year, Lilly pulled ahead.
They pulled ahead. And it's because they didn't have to invent the drug, they just had to solve the delivery problem.
They learned from Novo's supply chain nightmares.
Explicitly. The sources say they learned from Novo's issues, they made sure they had plenty of supply, but they also innovated on how it was sold. They started offering it directly to consumers.
Bypassing doctors and insurance hurdles.
Exactly, which made their product in practice more effective in the marketplace, even if it wasn't the first one.
But wait, are they just copying the core science here? I mean, surely Novo Nordisk has patents on this stuff, right?
Oh, absolutely. They have a huge patent wall. But what Lilly's success proves is that in a market with this much demand, sometimes distribution is more important than the initial innovation.
The consumer doesn't care who invented it. They just want the one they can get today.
That's it. Lilly solved the supply problem, Novo's curse, and they won. It's the ultimate first-mover disadvantage. You pave the road, and your competitor drives a faster car down it.
So let's apply that back to AI. OpenAI, the ultimate first mover, versus, well, everyone.
The shocks came early. A Chinese firm, DeepSeek, launched a really cutting-edge model for free.
Ouch. That hurts the subscription model.
It does. But the real threat, of course, is Google. After ChatGPT hit, Google went into overdrive. And the analysis now says Google is basically neck and neck with OpenAI.
And Google has these massive structural advantages.
Huge advantages. They have what the sources call a vertically integrated business model.
Meaning they own the whole pipeline?
The whole thing. They own the data centers, they own the Android operating system, and they own the main way the world gets information. Search. They don't have to go out and buy capacity. They already own it.
And they don't have to find users.
Right. They have almost 4 billion users already logged into their services. They can just bake their AI into Gmail or search overnight. No customer acquisition cost.
That infrastructure took decades to build. And now Google looks like the company to beat, even though OpenAI had the breakthrough.
And here's the key. Google doesn't have to go into $1.4 trillion of debt to build the infrastructure. They're just spending to upgrade what they already have. It's a whole different ballgame.
So what's the big lesson here for you, our listener? It seems that a hit product rarely translates into lasting success on its own. The business model is just too fragile.
It is. So let's contrast those three with 2 quiet achievers from this year.
Okay.
These companies didn't rely on a single viral product. They built structural advantages. Take Walmart. Their market value soared to nearly $1 trillion this year.
With no big splashy product launch.
No fanfare at all. Their success comes from their enormous scale, which they used to push down costs and pass savings on to shoppers. But the key thing they did was what the sources call a digital reinvention.
We hear that phrase a lot. What did it actually mean for them?
It was structural. They heavily automated their supply chain, their logistics. They integrated their online and physical stores seamlessly. Think about online grocery pickup.
Right.
That wasn't just a new feature, it was a massive internal logistics project. They built a defensive moat around their business based on efficiency. You can't just copy that overnight.
Their advantage is the infrastructure, not just one interesting product.
Exactly. Our second example is CATL, China's battery giant. They had the largest share offering in the world in 2025.
And again, not because of some new consumer gadget.
Not at all. Their success was driven by just hefty, consistent, long-term investment in R&D that gave them a huge technological lead in battery tech.
So they're not worried about copycats adding an extra tooth to a doll.
No, they're building the infrastructure that powers the global energy grid. Their knowledge is proprietary. It takes a competitor a decade to catch up to that, not a few months.
So it seems the real lesson here is that a hit product gets you attention, but lasting success requires a business model that is just hard to replicate.
One that's always evolving and uses its scale to create efficiency, not just to fund massive debt.
So we've seen how the dream product can become a nightmare. Impossible scaling, shadow markets, and faster competitors who learn from your mistakes. The curse is real.
Which brings up a really important question, something for you to think about. The sources show that for OpenAI to survive, it has to execute this level of growth never seen before, requiring that $1.4 trillion in spending. So does the curse of overnight success today mean that only companies that can find that kind of staggering capital can actually survive? Has the era of the nimble, lasting startup effectively come to an end?
That's a powerful thought, and maybe a little sobering. The bar for enduring success has clearly never been higher. Thank you for sharing these sources with us and letting us take this deep dive. All right, that's all for today's episode. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like, save, and follow. Your support is the motivation that drives my progress.